Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to Brunch with Bigfoot, Michigan Rob. Of course, I am your host, BMR. Joining me in Studio B from Texas Front Porch. Please subscribe, if not already, my buddy Tex. He joins me today on NFL Drafts Thursday. Yes, I'm very excited, for this show, for seeing everybody finally in chat. I'm going down after the show. I'm going to hang out with all the crazies in downtown Detroit because my Detroit Lions are on the board at number 29. That's a good thing because that meant we had a great season. So I'm geeked about that. We don't have a guest today because of the draft, and I don't know how long the show is going to go today. Regardless, when Tex and I get together, it's always a hoot and a holler, as you all know. Thanks for coming on in. If this is your first time here, please subscribe to Bigfoot Michigan Rob on YouTube, Texas Front Porch on YouTube, and of course, the Blondes and the Booze Paranormal Podcast, all found on YouTube. You can find us on iHeartRadio, Spreaker Podcasts now, everybody. Yes, indeed. Wherever podcasts are found, whatever your flavor is, we're there now. We've been there for a couple, 3-4 months. So, go check us on out. If you like and want to help support what we all do around here, the super chat is open. The super chat is, of course, a great way to, help support what we do. Become a BMR pirate. That's right. You can become a member. BMR pirate. You get a picture of me, mateys, with my bandana next to your name over in chat. It's kind of fun. Thanks for those that are members, that are pirates, I should say. Thank you for that. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all social media platforms, and of course, check out our YouTube main pages for scheduled events and activities that we do have going on. And I got to tell you what, coming right around the corner, we've got the Alabama Bigfoot Conference coming up. It's almost 5 weeks away, I'm guessing. Yeah, about 5 weeks. June 7th and 8th. The speaker lineup. Well, Tex Wesson, of course, is the master of ceremonies. Speakers include Barton Nunnally, Daryl Denton, the Blondes and the Booze, Jason McLean, Greg Ogles, Martin Groves, and of course, yours truly, BMR. Anniston Performing Arts Center in Anniston, Alabama. The tickets, you guys, they're pretty cheap, I might say. $30 online, $35 at the door. Go to BamaBigfootConference.com for more details. It's brought to you by Sidekicks Paranormal. June 7th. It's already filled up already, you guys. However, we're doing a meet and greet at Western House Sizzler, I think it is. That's June 7th. Just because it's booked up does not mean we'll turn you away at the door, and neither will the restaurant. Come on down. Let's have a nice little pre-party, share some stories, and we'd love to meet you all down there. So thank you for that. Also, I want to thank everybody for buying the book, Bigfoot Michigan Rob Presents True Cryptid Encounters, Book 1, found on Amazon. If Amazon comes calling, please leave a review because that does help promote book sales. And the banner I just put up is scrolling down there where you can find out more details on that. And speaking of all the other things that we've got going on, the lineup, of course, is Texas Front Porch kicks off the week on Mondays, 8 to 11. 8 o'clock is the Diva Dimension, rolls into Texas Front Porch with Tex and the lovely Brandy from the Blondes and Booze. Tuesdays is Beyond BMR at 9 o'clock at East with myself and Krista. Wednesdays, Barton Nunnally's Inhumanoids at 9 o'clock in the East. Check out Barton. Thursday, right back here at brunch with Bigfoot, Michigan Rob, starting at 1 o'clock in the East with myself and Tex. Thursday, a new show on Texas Front Porch. It's with Monica Rollins. It's our Paranormal World. Very nice show, awesome show. Check that out at 8. Then right after that's the Blondes and Booze Paranormal Podcast. They come on at 9 in the East. And of course, if you want a little more woo mixed in with the booze are back at you. Friday, 8 o'clock in the East, an hour early. Those of you interested in true crime, well, actually, before I get into that, Sundays, Truth or Tinfoil, subscribe to them. That's Randy and Brandy. They do video and photos. They break it down and they ask the question, what do you think? Is it tinfoil or is it real? Fun show. Again, if you're into true crime, Miss Diva and Mr. Tex, Sunday after that, Infamous Minds, 7 o'clock. So that's the lineup. Please subscribe if you're new to all of our channels across the board. And with that being said, I'm not going to waste any more time. And I'm going to bring up my buddy from down south, Mr. Wesson.
Hey.
Hey, Texas. I should say Texas. I'm trying to get myself out of that saying that. I'm sorry. It just naturally came. But, how you doing, my man?
Good. How you doing? How's the knee, man?
The knee isn't bad. Thanks for asking. I had the arthroscopic a couple days ago, and I got to tell you, man, it's a lot improved. You know, they took out some floating piece of cartilage or whatever, fibers, whatever was in there. It was bugging me for the longest time. And it was an in and out procedure. They froze up the knee. I'm awake for this whole ordeal. Technology's come a long way. I watched them do it, and I got to tell you, I was sore and out of it for a day. Yesterday I was kind of groggy, but today I got to tell you, I can bend this knee. I could do about 50 jumping jacks, I think, and not.
Oh, wow.
I don't think I'd be slowed down, but I'm not going to overdo it, you know, because
Yeah, you don't want to do that.
you know things. I'm not 25 anymore, you know.
No.
So yeah, so I'm also excited today. I purposely didn't schedule a guest. Well, for a couple reasons. I usually just like to BS with you or whoever else is on the panel because people enjoy those shows as well. But I purposely today made sure that I did not have anybody on because I don't know how long we'll go. Because after the show, I'm going down to Detroit because, of course, again, the NFL draft this year, and it's kind of a big thing here in Detroit. They're expecting about 500,000 people.
Wow.
So we're going early and check out a couple restaurants, bars, and hang out, see if we can take some pictures or whatever we end up doing. I have no idea. And then I probably won't stay, though, for the whole thing. We'll probably come back home and watch the draft because, you know, Tex, as much as it's going to sound like a lot of fun, I don't think I'm going to be hanging out with 500,000 people. I mean, I mean, but here's the thing that makes it worse is the parking. I think we've got to park about 30 minutes away.
Wow.
You know, yeah, we're literally. I mean, this way, I mean, the parking is going to be insane. In fact, people right now, they're letting in the doors. And by the time I get done with the show and get down there, it's going to be an experience to say the least. So I'm looking forward to it. Again, and I'm not going to stay all night long because if I stayed all night long, I couldn't pay my house payment the following month. I don't.
Yeah, I hear that.
I hear it's like $20 for a beer or something. I mean, something $100 parking, $50 parking. You know, they make sure they make them. You know, the NFL is smart marketing. I tell you, of all the companies, and the NFL is a company. I don't care what people tell you. They are an ingenious marketing company. They make billions. Probably they might be the richest company in the United States.
Yeah.
But so with that being said, I looking forward to it. Thanks for everybody for coming on in. Appreciate it. So I guess I don't know. We're just gonna kind of do our thing. Text talk about a few different things. I gotta tell you, the people in the see Texas show texted. Tex might be doing these Wednesday night shows sporadically since he has the time, much like on Saturday night we've been doing. And there was you had an interesting guest on last night. I like to get
Yeah,
into
he's in the
that, though.
chat. He's in the chat.
Yeah, Mr. Centers, I believe, right? I
Yeah.
don't see him now. I gotta tell you, it's Charles. That was I caught part of that. I'm gonna watch the full replay later on tonight or tomorrow. Which begs the question when we talk about Bigfoot and Dogman, Tex. We all say, where do they come from? How do they get here? Portals. Have they been here for centuries? You know, it's always up for debate, speculation, right? Some interesting things though. Or did they come from outer space? We did a show, myself and Krista with Takashi Chris and Thomas, Mr. Last night's show. The guest that came on for you was talking about the aliens enslaved Bigfoot, and I tell you what, we talked about that. Believe it or not, on the Beyond BMR show with Krista and Chris, and she had brought that same thing up. So watching snippets with you earlier, I found that to be very intriguing.
Yeah, and that wasn't the first time I'd heard that either. And these little gray boogers are nasty, and I know people talk about different aliens and different races of them having different agendas and stuff. I don't know that we can trust any of them, to be honest with you.
Well, I've said many times I don't trust a Bigfoot as far as I can throw him, which I wouldn't be able to lift them up, and that goes true with these aliens or anything else that we're unfamiliar with. I don't trust anything I'm not familiar with,
Right?
Including a human being, for God's sakes. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. It's and I don't know about this whole astral projection thing. I haven't. I know you can learn to do it. I don't. I don't know, man. I don't know if I want to do it. If I even if I was able. I mean that's. I think it takes somebody that's a little braver than I am. Put yourself out there like that. I don't know.
Yeah, putting yourself out there is the word for it. And I don't want to talk about me, but you know that I attempted that astral projection about a year ago or so. And I was talking to somebody and I was reading some books. And I was doing that meditation and I talked about this. I kind of came on Paranormal Paul's show. We talked a little bit about it or some other show. I don't know already. They all run together, Tex. You know that. And where I was sitting there, this has nothing to do with the sleep paralysis with the mist down the hallway, but the same room. I was trying to astral project some long time a whiles back, and I don't know if I was dreaming or sleep paralysis, but I will tell you this, as you probably heard this as well, as many people already have heard it. When I was sitting in that chair, and I started crawling down that hallway, in my area there, and I was not knowing if I was awake, dreaming, or what. It was very strange. And so I looked over my right shoulder, and my physical body was still sitting in the chair. And when I saw myself, I snapped out of it, like, holy cow. And I mentioned this to Brian Bowden, who knows a lot about astral projection. And he says I was probably on the verge of actually projecting. Now, with that being said, I'm not going to ever attempt that again. And then I talk to people that says you could cast yourself in a place you don't want to be, and you may never come back.
Well, not only that, me and Mike were talking about it off air after the show last night, and she made a good point. When you leave your body, you leave it open. Hey, Corey, so there might be something in having in your body when you get back. So what and then that leads me to what, to the true crime thing. What if that's happened? You know,
With some of these serial killers that claim to not know that they committed the murder, or they weren't themselves, much
yeah,
like
or
that.
these, more along the lines of not necessarily serial killers, but I think more along the lines of these spree killers and um, mass murderers, because it's completely different. Um, you, but you hear so many times, especially when you're dealing with the kids that pull this stuff. It's you hear the parents talk, and growing up they were nice kids and everything, and then something changes, and I have to wonder, if young kids leave their body, maybe they're led while they're asleep, or at a weak moment, by something that's got, not their best agenda at heart, and they end up being taken over, and then that leads them to, the becoming psychotic and stuff like that.
Have you come across any cases where they've actually reported that they weren't themselves? It was an out of body experience that led them to kill people?
It's more along the lines of you hear a lot of, well, I heard voices and that type of thing. I had people, or I've read stories and heard stories about, it was like something taking me over. It was, that type of thing. So, um, you think you're a psychopath, Puck? That's interesting. Have you been diagnosed? Um, if you have, I would love to talk to you, honestly. But it's, I think it begs the question: does this happen for sure? I mean, we know possession happens. It's no different.
No, it's not. And you wonder too, if some of these things that go on in the world, if people were taken over by a demon, right?
Yeah, yeah. And it don't necessarily need to be a demon. Just um, a mean spirited spirit.
A disgruntled spirit that has
Yeah,
not been
there you go.
crossed over, right? And they're just gruff, and they've been in this in
And
between world. They've been the in between, not in heaven, not in hell, but they're floating around for maybe in some cases centuries. Tex,
yeah, yeah.
I'd be a little irritated with people on the earth, I think, and I'm a pretty nice guy. But if I was 100 years,
Wow, sorry to hear that, Diane.
sorry, Diane. Yep. Hi, Andy. Hello to everybody in chat. So yeah, it just makes you wonder, and of course we always start off on different tangents, but I think it's well worth talking about, because then it leads to believe, and again, you're not a big fan of, not that you're a big fan, Tex, because these things happen when you talk about people that people say all the time how they spoke with something, or something spoke with them. Perhaps it was a
Hmm.
Bigfoot or something. And you always bring up the good theory though, Tex, and I'm with you on this. I believe that people do, but you always say, what are they speaking with exactly? And I'm
Right,
wondering, in the
right,
case of human beings, that has nothing to do with cryptids, what leads them to do the crimes they commit. And I'm not going to talk
right.
about mental health at all, right? People will say it's a
Right.
mental health issue, which I get is probably a pretty high percentage. But I think with people that I think there's some of these people that get deep in the paranormal world, I think they kind of lose sight with reality in some instances.
I
Or they manifest things.
Well, and that's, we've talked to so many people that have these different experiences and stuff, and the mind speak and that type of thing. And I'm never going to say that it's not happening. Never. Because just because it hadn't happened to me doesn't mean squat. But I do, and I will always encourage people to, if this starts happening, to be very, very cautious as to what you're communicating with, you know. So, but I do think that they can um, encourage or um, nudge you into doing stuff that you normally wouldn't do. If you invite something in on purpose or by accident, and you don't even really have to invite them in. I think you just have to be at a vulnerable time. We've talked about women postpartum. You know, uh, they're at a weak time in their life. I mean, because it's tough on them. When postpartum depression is a real thing, and you know, it's very. I think it would be very easy at a moment in somebody's life like that for something that does not have your best interest or is mischievous or flat out evil to get their foot in the door. And if you're leaving yourself open and inviting stuff to communicate with you and that type of thing, it absolutely opens the door to just about anything if you're not careful.
I agree with that. I came across something kind of interesting yesterday. I was happened to be up, and I was a little after the I was getting ready to go to bed actually, and I just popped on Barton's show last night, right? And he had open mic or whatever it was, and
Yeah, I
and I
caught the
had,
tail end of it.
yeah, and I brought up something which I'm gonna get not going to get into, but Bart made a point that I never really thought about before. Because I asked if I was inviting something nefarious or demonic into my life, but he said something that I never thought about, which I thought was interesting. He goes, Rob, evil or nefarious beings surround us all the time.
Yep.
It doesn't matter. You don't have to invite them in. You don't have to get an attachment. You don't have to pick up a trinket at a store which was haunted from years past. It surrounds us every day. The negative energy is around everybody. And
But the other side of the coin on that is so's the positive,
well,
so's the
no,
good
that's
stuff.
where we're talking about the positive energy. You know, if you're true to your soul, your heart, and your mind as a good person, and you reflect positive energy, then these things don't happen to people. But if
Right.
you're a people that's down on the mouth or you're gruff and you don't care what's happening in the world, you don't care about your neighbor, then you're opening yourself up to what? You're these nefarious beings, they like that. And then they push you and they perhaps feed you information
Amen.
in your subconscious.
Well, and I think that if you really pay attention to your moods, and if you have people going, what is wrong with you? You weren't always like this. And I think I think you need to be checked out for several different things. And that is, mental health for one. Maybe you have a chemical imbalance, which is a real thing, folks. It's not necessarily a mental thing, it's a physical thing that can be treated. Now, I don't agree with the doctors handing these happy pills out like candy, but there are legitimate reasons to do that, to give people those pills to adjust the chemicals in their brain. And but if it doesn't change, or if that doesn't help, or you go to therapy and it's not helping, maybe you should go ahead and check out the spiritual side of things, because you I think you need to cover your bases, if nothing else. If you have a continual problem.
I would agree for sure. I think that first of all, we have to know ourselves. We know how we are from once we can have the cognizance of who we are as a person growing up, through grade school, junior high, high school, college, tech school, wherever you do until adulthood. We know who we are, right? And we all have the same habits, we have the same traits throughout our life. Certain
Right.
things perhaps veer us in a different direction, but we know who we are. We know if we're true to ourselves, we know who we are. But I think if you start coming across these situations where you're just feeling like a totally different person and your thinking maybe is getting a little bit absurd or way
Dark.
or dark, and I think that it's the time that you might have to talk to somebody from along a professional line, right?
I I agree. I mean, if you start having these thoughts, that these intrusive thoughts that invade your mind, and you haven't had them in the past, but it takes some self diagnosis. It really does. You have to pay attention and be able to turn the mirror on yourself and go, what am I doing? Because if you keep losing jobs because you're not getting along with people, or there's drama in every job that you go to, there's drama. Maybe it's not everybody else. Maybe it's time to look in the mirror for the issue. But it is very, very hard for people to go, well, maybe I'm the problem,
Yeah.
and to take the steps to possibly fix it.
Yeah.
You
I
know,
agree. And everybody, yeah, this, I, of course, we turn to tangents, start talking a little bit on the psyche of our human nature and our mind and little mental health. So we'll kind of revert from that, but it kind of plays a lot though now into if we go back to what are we really seeing in the woods, right? Tex?
right?
I mean, it's like when you're out in the woods, you're a Bigfoot researcher, you're looking at your dogman researcher, and we're so gung ho about maybe getting evidence or getting that picture. You and I aren't into that anymore. I get that. We just looked for the experience.
Yeah.
If we can capture something, fine. And I'm thinking, are some people you think drawn to, let's say the dog man, okay? Let's say you're drawn to the dog man, and let's say that whether we think dog man is something of a that travels through portals, or it's something that's flesh and blood, or it's something that's metaphysical or paranormal. Do you think that a lot of times too, when we're out there in the field and we're looking for things, that they prey on our mind because they can read into us? Because we hear these stories about it knew I was there. I felt it watching me. I started thinking
Mhm.
these images. You think there's any rational reasoning behind that?
Absolutely, absolutely, I do. It again, it goes all back to protecting yourself, and whatever deity you believe in. Um, being a Christian, I think that's the only. There's only one God that can protect you like that, and that's just my belief. I know Charles has different beliefs than I do, but I mean, even Catholics, they'll pray to Mary Mother, which to me that approach, I've been told that Catholics are pagans. Well, to me, it doesn't matter if you're a pagan or whatever. If you believe that there is one over one, I almost said overlord, but that's not it. One God over all. But we all know there's little g gods. Okay, we all know that.
Demi, well, G, yeah, little G, right? Gotcha.
Because in fact, Charles last night brought up a really good point. What if there wasn't these others. Why would one of the 10 commandments be, you will have no God before me? Well, if he was the only one out there, why would he have to make that statement? And so that brings up a very good point. It's, you have to be careful to which, well, I'll put it this way. Even if you think what you are praying to or whatever, just because it says it's good doesn't mean it's always is, because they will. We know these spirits will lie. So, and welcoming stuff into your life, in the beliefs of some people, even Monica, she refuses to put a welcome mat in front of her door because of the fae. So,
well, I got to tell you something. I heard an interesting story about the welcome mat. I've heard that before, and I didn't hear Monica speak on that, but this is back when I was talking with somebody else when we were kind of associated with each other, but we're not. And we were talking one night, but it was a good point that this guy had brought up about the welcome mat. The same thing. You're welcoming in anything. I don't want to talk about like you have to, like back in folklore with the modern day the legendary vampire, I should say folklorish vampire, you have to invite in the vampire.
right.
He could be standing outside your door, and if you welcome him in, then boom, all of a sudden you got this evil trapped in your house. People were saying about the welcome mat, inviting the fae or whatever entity. And this guy, during the show we were doing, said he turned the welcome mat, he turned it upside down, Tex. Now, think about this for a minute. And I just thought it was kind of ridiculous. And I'll be honest when I say this. Turned it down. And the reason he had it up, when he had it up, Tex, he was getting weird things happening in his house. Someone suggested they get rid of the welcome mat. Well, for whatever the reason, this man did not want to get rid of the welcome mat. So instead of when you walk up to the back door, the back porch, you look down, it says welcome. So it's inviting everything right in the universe, all the energy. The guy turned it upside down. Do you know what he went on to say is that when he turned it down, he got more negative energy and more weirdness was happening. And so I'm thinking about this. And as anybody is probably thinking out there in chat or listening, he turned it down. Depending on your beliefs, you're turning it down to what? Inner earth or hell, perhaps, right? So it's face down. I mean, I thought it was absurd at the time, but the longer I do this and speak with people like you do, Tex, that's not such an absurdity, is it? I mean, I don't think so today. 10 years ago, I said, you're nuts. It's just a welcome mat. Just like the Ouija board, you get it at Milton Bradley. Well, if you use that incorrectly, guess what? You open yourself up to trouble.
Yeah, no doubt. And I don't believe in opening yourself to anything. I mean, I do some pretty sketchy shit.
Yeah, well, yeah.
When I'm out, and I get, people tell me all the time I shouldn't challenge anything, and maybe one of these days it's going to bite me in the ass, but it may not. I think if you really have to put your armor on, whether what I don't care what kind of armor you think, but with me, you my man says come back with a warrant. I love it.
Thanks, Melissa. That's funny.
I love that. I need one of those. But I lost my track of thought.
Yeah, that was a doozy. Yeah, I lost my track of thought for a second there.
But I will say this about the welcome mats. Not necessarily a welcome mat, but there was a serial killer. What was his name? Dadgummit. We just talked about him not too long ago. But
Zodiac or somebody. There's
no, no, no.
uh,
It was
just today on this show.
no.
Okay.
It was on Infamous Minds not long ago. Yeah. That when he would walk through the neighborhood, and no, it wasn't Bundy. We actually haven't talked about Bundy yet.
No, well, you should wait. Yeah, I would wait. That's yeah.
But this guy would walk through the neighborhood, and if a window or a door was unlocked, those were his victims. Because he believed that if the door was locked, that meant you weren't welcome. But if they were unlocked, you were welcoming him in. He was. It was okay.
So in his mind, yeah, in his mind, then if your doors were locked, then he would go on. Okay, I'm not welcome. But also in his mind, if your door was unlocked, it meant free entrance. You're welcome to my home.
Yep.
That's crazy thinking, right, Tex? I mean, you wouldn't think that. If you were in the neighborhood, came up my house and my doors are locked, okay. If they're open, you're gonna walk in. Now, if you know it's my house, you're gonna walk in. If you're looking for me, I get that. But a stranger in a strange neighborhood, yeah, that's the human mind the human mind is fascinating, isn't it? How people think.
It is. I mean, it's because I believe
Girl in a gong says son of Sam. A couple other people
no.
mentioned that. No, okay.
I'm looking him up. Richard Chase.
Okay.
Richard Chase, the Sacramento vampire. And I mean, now given this is the same guy that they found out they found in the woods up on top of a hill, naked, covered in blood, and it turns out to be cow blood. But he was also he did some just horrific things. I mean, but he would drink blood because he thought his blood was turning into powder, and he drank his human victims' blood. He would drain it, and they actually found spots where he would take after he did a kill. They found little ring stains around the body. Well, what that was he had got in one case he had got an old yogurt container out of the trash and was using that to dip blood out of the body cavity of the woman he killed and was drinking it. So, I mean, it's not BDK, BTK. It was Richard Chase. And he was absolutely, I mean, yeah, it's the stuff that he did was pretty horrific, but it's a fascinating case.
You did
And
that
see,
on
and it's another thing people talk about. I can't tell you how many times I've been warned about, listening to this stuff or falling asleep listening to this, this stuff. But I studied it. I study this stuff, because I have a true crime show and it's one I'm interested in. And I'm not interested in the blood and gore aspect of it. I'm interested in how the mind works. That's why I want to talk to Puck Elf because if he's been diagnosed as having those as antisocial behavior and narcissistic tendencies, it doesn't necessarily mean he's a psychopath.
No, right.
But it's fascinating what you may see these red flags, as we call them, in the younger years. and then they slowly develop, you know, and you have to wonder when if this was an evil presence that took over, when it happened, because a lot of these, especially with these kids, that you hear the interviews with the parents, that they were such a sweet, well behaved, great grades, all this kind of stuff, very smart, and then something changed. And even at a younger age, around first, second, third grade, they'll talk about how they were just a really sweet kid and everything, and then something changed. So we don't know. A lot of times, what we're seeing, a pattern that we're seeing, is frontal lobe damage.
Mm,
They have an accident. There's one case where, um, when the kid was young, he got hit in the head with a swing, and he
yeah.
had frontal lobe damage. And then after that, he changed. So we're seeing that pattern also. So that's something that, if you are aware of changes in your thought patterns and stuff like that, look back and see, you know, but you have to be brutally honest with yourself when you're looking back on yourself. But when you're looking back, if your parents are still alive or whatever, you have family members, if you can get them to talk, ask them if they remember you ever getting hit in the head when you were young. Because it didn't have to happen. The change wouldn't have to happen as soon as you were hit. The frontal lobe damage can take a while to develop. So, but and that's a hard conversation to have with a family member. you know,
Yeah,
when
it
did I?
is.
When did I become an asshole?
And you were talking to earlier, not that we're doing a true crime segment here, but the psychology of this is fascinating, and people seem to like it out in the chat. And okay, you go back to some of these serial murderers, let's call whatever, however you want to coin it.
Right,
A lot
right.
of them started out like killing rodents, right? They would find a cat in the
Oh yeah,
neighborhood,
yeah.
and which is, I mean, any kid at 7, 8 years old that kills a cat, to me, is got to go see somebody immediately. Okay, that's my
Hmm.
opinion. In the neighborhood I grew up in some time ago, and this has nothing to do with the kid Jimmy that I talk about, who I sensed was evil and ended up murdering his grandmother. Remember that?
Hmm.
You know that story.
Oh yeah.
Well, in our neighborhood, though, I was about 8, 10, 12 years old. It was a bike trail that we would ride our bikes through and had a great time in. And it was in this part of town that was I'm going to say it was about a mile long or whatever, but it was right 2 blocks from where I could walk, take my bike, and we would drive this trail. So we drove this trail along the creek, and again, as you know about my creek, which I've said many times, it goes hundreds of miles. Starts in like Ann Arbor, and it goes all the way down to the Detroit River. So we're driving our bikes, and we had been 13, 14. We had BMX bikes. My parents wouldn't let me do that at 5 or 6. I was 12 or 13, 15 maybe. And the most scariest things that I've seen in my life, Tex, was going down this trail, and we're driving, and we've seen a couple, dead cats. Now, for anybody who loves animals, this is going to be just a little rated R, I guess. Saw a couple dead cats. I'm like, wow, and it was really it was kind of a smell going on, and so us kids, we got off our bikes, started investigating on foot now, and we're walking. And then we came across the end of the creek. There was a couple poles that were put there. They weren't a power pole. It wasn't. It was like a pole that we would use to set up a tent, right? But a little thicker, and it was in the ground, and it was stretched across maybe 8, 10 feet with like a clothesline. And Tex, I got to tell you something. And this city was maybe 3 miles south of where I lived. And again, this is really the gory part, is there was like 3 skinned cats.
Mm.
Okay. Yeah. Horrible. I mean, us boys, we cried. I mean, we saw these animals that I never seen anything that horrific in my life, to be honest. went home, told mom and dad, oh my God, somebody did something terrible, to these animals. So as years went on, we found in this part of Michigan that this guy got busted for murder. Okay, and a long story short, after the events in the investigation, things were found out about this guy, and these skinned cats that we found on the telephone line text was something that this guy had done
Uh,
and had also committed a murder. So when it goes back to talking about how these young children that maybe do these kill frogs or random things, this kind of fits that profile, that pattern, does it not? I mean, you do these true crime. Does that kind of fit some of the things you talk about? I
oh,
certainly have seen this before.
absolutely. Well, I've seen it in my own neighborhood. My neighbor and I did a show about this. My neighbor had some dismembered cats thrown over in his backyard,
Hmm.
and it's he reported it and everything. Well, his wife got doing some research on her own, and it's turns out that she was able to dig up 42 reports in the county of the same thing. So there was a very, very, real possibility. I think it's almost a certainty that there was a budding serial killer in our area. I haven't heard of anything. They may have moved, so I haven't heard of any cases taking place or anything like that. But when I was young, I was up in Texarkana visiting a cousin, and me and him were out back. They had pretty good sized property, and it backed up to a set of woods, and we were, of course, back there, running around, and we found something very much like what you did, but it was a dog that was hanging from a tree. Somebody had hung this dog. Turns out it was a set of brothers that lived on the other side of these woods, and they were notorious for doing that stuff to animals. Now I don't know whatever came of them. I was very, very young when this happened, but it scared us too. I mean, we turned around and ran. But I never will forget the image of that dog being hung from that tree. You know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I got to tell you, what I saw again, that was that dog, that story. What I saw with my friends, it's just some terrible stuff, terrible stuff. And again, I think that a lot of these incidents that occur, they start at a young age. I think a lot of them, with some of these kids, and they turn into adults, and I guess they get some sort of satisfaction out of it. What satisfaction is there in maiming an innocent animal, right? A family pet, if you will. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's makes you think about it. And
Well,
again, yeah, go
go
ahead.
ahead.
No,
No, go
no, I was going to change the subject, but go ahead, Tex.
ahead. Well, you know better than to get me started down this road.
No, I know, I love it. I think it's a great conversation because you and I have never really had this discussion on this show, and I named the show Bigfoot Dogman Discussion. Here we're talking about something that's totally not related. I'm gonna have to change the title of the show, when we get off air here. Thanks for all the new people coming in. If you're new here, please subscribe to Bigfoot Mr. Rob. And yes, we normally stay on topic, but we do sometimes go off on tangents.
Here.
But they're things of interest, and I think it's things that everybody should know and hear about, or at least listen about. Might not be everybody's cup of tea, but we sometimes go down these rabbit holes, and I think that a lot of this does relate to what people do in the woods, right? I mean, I think there's a commonality with all these things, man. So
Well, yeah, and we got off on the mental health aspect of it,
yeah,
and I think it's a very I think it's a subject that needs to be looked at in this field because there's possibilities out here, and folks, I'm not calling anybody a liar. I'm not, but there's several possibilities out in this field when people start telling these stories about communicating with these things and that type of stuff. That they are one, that they truly experienced this, or two, they're making up and they want the attention, or it didn't happen, but in their world it did, and they truly believe what they're saying, but it wasn't an actual event. So, and that's when you start questioning the mental health aspect of it. But it's so hard to prove any of those because you have to be open minded in this field because there's so many things out there that we don't understand, that we do run across, that you can't count anything out. When people talk about, other people have these shows and stuff, and they talk about, oh, I vetted this guest, I vetted this story. How did you vet a story that only had one witness? There's no way you can do that. You either take the person at their word or you don't. If there were several witnesses to an event, yes, you can. It's like the old saying goes: two people can keep a secret if one of them's dead. So
Yeah, right.
eventually, when if there's several people in on a hoax or a lie, it's going to come out. Somebody's going to say something to somebody else, and then it's going to
It's
get
gonna
out.
slip up. Yeah, and that's a great point you bring up because, as you know, I wrote the book, right? And I got all the emails from people. I put that in the book, and I'll
Right.
do the video. And like when we have guests on, whether it's on Texas Front Porch, the Blondes, BMR, we have guests on to talk about their encounters, right? And but you know what I always say is I never, and you do too, Tex. We never walked in these people's shoes. I am not going to cast doubt on. I will say this about every single one of them. I know they saw something or something did happen. Maybe it's not quite what they think they saw in some instances, but I know that the people are honest for the most part. Are there hoaxers? Yes. Are there people that want 15 minutes of fame? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I still don't get that. When someone sends me something in anonymity and give me the name of 123 Star Child, which is totally made up. I mean, they don't want credit. They don't want fame. They don't want,
Right.
they don't want something. And but then again, of course, on the flip side, you kind of, and a lot of things that I get, I'll look up the location. They might send me, yeah, that exists. That's a true town, true city. There's certain things you look for, but both, excuse me, but a lot of these people that tell these stories over and over again that we're all familiar with, the one thing that I always look for, they're always consistent text with what they say, right? It's never strays. It goes in a different direction with a lot of different people. And again, we weren't there.
Right.
Who are you to tell me it didn't happen? I'm not that guy, right? I'm going to tell you that, hey, I believe you. And thanks for coming on the show. Thanks for helping me out with the book or whatever.
And it's very um, it's like we say, you have to be very, very cautious, because it's very possible that you can be talking to somebody that has a mental illness, and
True.
it may be you that they're reaching out for help to.
Yes.
And we've always said that you can contact us. We're not counselors by any stretch of the
Right.
imagination,
No.
but some people either can't afford or don't have they don't have the resources, or they don't feel comfortable talking to a counselor with some of these experiences they're having. and they just need an ear. Well,
Yep.
we offer that.
Yes.
We're not. I mean, we may ask you if you want to come on the show, but that's
Right.
as far as it's going to go. If you say no, that's fine. But that doesn't mean we're not going to talk to you, because we feel like it's our duty to be as big a help as we can, to people, because we understand me and you both have had experiences that we've had issues dealing with that affect us
Yep.
in different ways. So, if you can talk to somebody that's on the same page, it helps. It's very therapeutic.
It is, and I'll say this again. I've said this ad nauseum. People that know me for a while, following the channels, I always say for me, it was therapeutic because I was lost and alone and embarrassed about what happened to me. I couldn't tell nobody because I didn't want to be ridiculed. I didn't want to be judged. I mean, I'll say this. I'll say this on every show, you guys. We do this because I do this. What happened to me, and I love this
Hmm.
subject. I obviously love all this strange phenomenon. But I remember it's the worst feeling in my entire life when I felt that I was the only one on the planet Earth.
Oh, absolutely.
I felt like the only person because nobody helped me or they made fun of me. And I went through a lot of trial and error texts, as you well know. I found Carrie Arnold helped me, and then I met you through a different source, which we won't talk about that. But then we became friends, right? And then yeah, and talking about it. So if someone comes to me with some story that might be out of this world, if they want to talk about it because it's going to help them, then I'm there for them, right? I mean, I'm not going to judge or ridicule anybody. You could tell me that the moon turned purple and a witch flew down on a red magic train and took you to Puerto Vallarta. I'm going to listen to you. Might not believe you, but I'm going to listen to you and give you my thoughts and my help in getting you managed through that problem, right? We can do that. Even if people make stuff up because maybe they're skirting the real issue. People do make up stuff, you guys, to skirt the real issue because they still are embarrassed to bring it out.
Right. It,
So
it's. I think I don't like the way some people run their shows, because they. I'm not going to point any fingers, but it tends to be most people that call themselves critical thinkers
oh yeah.
are nothing but criticizers.
Yeah,
And
that's garbage terminology to me.
yeah, that's just because it seems to me that critical thinking is just another term for a hole.
Critical thinker is a troll.
I mean, they critical
Yeah.
thinking tends to mean you're narrow minded for some reason,
You know,
and that's not what it means. That's they're way off base with what they're trying to do. You know, doesn't give you carte blanche to drag people through the mud because they've had a different experience than you have.
and Zoe makes the point, find the way yourself. Exactly what I did, Zoe. I found the way myself, but it was sucked. And
Yeah,
then throughout finding my way though, I with trial and error, you got to keep on keeping on, and then you get the relief or the burden is taken off of your shoulders. But it starts with you. I agree. It starts with the person. You got to step out of that comfort zone. Despite what people may say, you keep on keeping on because eventually you'll find that one person. And that's what I like to be for people, much like you do, Tex. You know what I mean?
yeah. I want to address this real quick. Um, Castor Polar X15 brings up. There's a highway that's been deemed murder highway. It comes out of Canada and goes down to the states, and they were asking if I'd heard about it. I had. It's mainly um, Aboriginal women that um, are being murdered there, and it honestly it's gone a long time without being thoroughly investigated. I'm glad to hear the FBI may be looking into it. As far as the trucker theory, because if the FBI has a theory that it's unrelated crimes and just truckers doing it, yeah, the Highway of Tears. Thank you, team. And the I saw an interview or heard an interview. I can't remember. No, I heard an interview with this trucker that had been convicted of several murders, and he said that there was a ring of them, and in his circle there were, I believe, 7 of them, and one of them was a woman, and they had codes that they would use over the CB and stuff that they would actually pull over and swap victims if they were tired of one, and they would change out. So this stuff is happening all over the country and all over the world, more than people realize. Unfortunately, a lot of the victims are what people have been calling the less dead, and it's people that live a transit lifestyle, the prostitutes and that type of thing, the hitchhikers, because they're less likely to be reported as missing, and which is a very sad state of affairs, but it does happen.
I'm sorry I had to leave text really quick. I got my phone blowing up for that draft stuff. But yeah. So thanks for everybody for coming on in. All you new people, please subscribe to Bigfoot Mr. Rob on YouTube, Texas Front Porch on YouTube, The Blondes and the Booze Paranormal Podcast on YouTube. Yeah, we titled this Bigfoot and Dog Man, but it's turned into a great discussion. I think that everybody is enjoying this because there's certain things that happen with people that are out there that, they're lost, right? Especially when you have these encounters. I don't care if it's a cryptid. I don't care if it's a ghost. I don't care if it's a haunting from your past, right? What To me, what happens in society is when people keep things bottled up over years, perhaps even decades, I think we reach that boiling point. And when you reach that boiling point, you don't know what you're doing in some cases. I think that you could crack under certain pressures, and people do. People do all the time. We've heard horrendous stories, which I won't get into, about people bottling up something inside themselves that they just cannot and refuse to release. And when they do release it, it calms them, and maybe they end up doing something that they thought perhaps would have been a misfortune for them or somebody else. So again, what we all do on these shows, when we have people on talking about encounters, talking about the trauma that they've gone through, much like many of us have, there's got to be an outlet. And I've said this too all the time. We're not unique at this. Other people do this, but we do it because it happened to us. So we come from a perspective where it did happen. So we've got some substance to offer you guys. So that's kind of the gist of this show. And again, I'm gonna have to rename this show, but I love this show. Thanks, Tex, man.
Hey, I think it's important to have these conversations, especially about the mental health aspect because who knows, we may something that we say may ring true with somebody out there that's having these issues, and have them. You're right, werewolf. I should. Um, you know what? I'll talk to Danielle, and I'll get Monica involved, and we'll do a show on the Highway of Tears. But it may ring with somebody. It may hit a chord with somebody, and they reach out, and hopefully they'll figure out what's going on with them. If they're having these these obtrusive thoughts and stuff. And that's really that's the whole purpose behind the Infamous Mind show is we don't focus on the crimes themselves. We focus on the the workings of their mind and the victims, because we want to make sure that they're recognized. And we also want to, put out the red flags that you can look for, not in just yourself, it's other people also that you deal with in everyday life,
I think that's a great way to end the show, because for those coming in, this is an abbreviated version. Great show, because good old BMR, in a few minutes, I'm going to be busting out here. It is Detroit, the city of Detroit. Hey, Gemini. It is the NFL draft is taking place, a once in a lifetime thing. So good old BMR is going to take off and head downtown Detroit with all the craziness. About 500,000 people are expected. Don't expect to see me on TV anywhere, because there's going to be way too many people. I don't even know what my seats are. I had to buy this pass, Tex. Oh, excuse me. I did not have to buy it. I had to download an app. You need an app on your phone to get into this place. But I think they want to track how many people they get. It's all marketing, all that data collection. And but man, I really enjoyed this show. I really did. And I could get into doing something like this on another show, another topic. But I appreciate everybody coming in. If you're new here, subscribe to our channels across the board. And Tex, any final thoughts before we let these fine folks go?
Go Lions.
That's right. Go Lions. It's all it used to be.
That's for you, brother. That's for you, brother.
Thank you. But it used to be our Super Bowl, because we sucked for so many years. We wanted to get a good high draft pick. Now that we were 30 minutes away from the Super Bowl last year, we have a low, we picked 29 out of 32 teams, which is also a good thing, right? When you're picking in the 20s, your team is pretty good.
Yeah. I don't even know where the Cowboys landed at this year, but
yeah, ahead of us. Well, we got a rematch. We got you guys on the calendar again. I noticed. I saw we played the Cowboys, I think, in Dallas again. Why do we always play you guys in Dallas, man? I don't know. That's but we'll see.
It's always a good game, though.
It is. Well, it's been the last couple of years. It has, for sure. Even the playoff game was pretty good. Yep. Which we probably should have won, by the way. But that's a debate for another day, Tex. I'm sure you disagree, but I guess we just can't blame it on the refs all the time, can we? So, but anyway, I guess all fans do it hard. Thanks for everybody for coming in. Subscribe to BMR, TEX, the girls, the blondes, and booze if you're new. I do appreciate it. We'll see you. Today's Thursday. So you got tonight Monica Rollins at 8, the blondes and booze at 9. Then
I'll be on with Monica tonight.
Tex will be on tonight. Oh, just a different show. You're going to do a show?
Well, no, I'll be on with Monica's show.
Oh, on her show tonight. I got you.
Yeah.
And then we've got Saturday. We don't do a show. Then we've got Truth or Tinfoil, and then going back with some Infamous Minds True Crime. So I'll see you guys next week. Tex, you have a great weekend. Everybody in chat, have a great weekend. And until next time, for Tex.
Yeah, I'm headed to Falk. Me, and Ryan Edwards, and Ryan Edwards, and me, Ryan Edwards, Jason McLean, Monica, and Brandy will all be in Falk for the conference this weekend, Friday and Saturday.
Oh, that'll be a lot of fun. I appreciate all the support for all our channels, for everybody, speaking for all of us across the Porch crew. And with that being said, thanks for coming on in. Thank you, Tex, and I will see you and all the rest of you on the flip side.